Hey, everybody, and welcome to Psychology with Mrs. Clemens. And this is Psychology Flipped. And as always, we need to remember to keep calm and study psychology because it's awesome. Duh. All right, so here we are getting started with our introduction to psychology, the science of the mind. And so just so you know how we know what we need to write and take notes on, we have our little pencil. Now, those of you guys that might have had me for class previously might remember Larry. This is not Larry. This is Larry's younger brother, and I can't remember his name. It'll come to me. Maybe it's Steve. We could call him Steve. Maybe you want to make your own name for him. All right, we're going to dip our toes here into the mind. All right, so what is psychology? And remember, you're writing this because Larry's little brother, cousin, uncle is Steve, and he's telling us to. So what is psychology? Our fancy schmancy definition is that it's the scientific study of behavior and mental processes that covers everything that we think, feel, and do. All right, and another definition, maybe just a little side to that, is it studies both our observable behavior and our internal emotions and thoughts. Now, here's the interesting thing with this. So, all right, observable behavior, that's really easy to study. You can see that I'm fidgeting, or you can see that I'm sleeping, or you could see that I'm biting my nails. But how do you study internal emotions and thoughts? And that's the real question here that we're going to talk about in psychology. So I'm going to do that with you guys with some of our activities that I'm going to try to find out your internal emotions and thoughts. And the way that we tend to do that is surveys a lot of the time. But there's other ways to do it too, and we're going to talk about those as we go throughout the course. All right, so one thing you need to know is this is a science, and we're going to talk about whether it's a hard science or a soft science. But regardless, it is a science. And when we do our studies, we do them systematically and we use the scientific method. So you guys learned about this in middle school, so we're not going to go through the whole thing. But yeah, it's important that you're doing research, you're conducting a hypothesis, and you're going to come up with a conclusion that's based on testing your hypothesis. So we don't just come out with random things that we say, oh, well, if your parents are divorced, you're probably going to grow up and get divorced. That's the hypothesis, but that's not the end all be all. We need to actually do studies and see, kids that have grown up in families of divorce versus kids that have grown up with non-divorced parents, and how happy were their parents, and look at all the different variables. It's craziness. There's whole classes dedicated to it in college. All right, so one of the things you do need to understand is science versus pseudoscience. And this is where kids get really, really mad at me because they say, I talk to my grandmother's ghost. Okay, am I going to be the person to tell you that you're not talking to your grandma's ghost? No, go for it. You're talking to them. But in class, we have to go with the hard part, the hard science, the things that can be proven, the things that are mainstream. Does mainstream science believe that you're talking to your grandma? No. Does mainstream science believe that if you step on a crack, you'll break your mother's back? No, that's a superstition. People that say, oh yeah, the moon landing, we didn't really do that. That's pseudoscience, a lot of the things that they use. And then we have fringe science, an idea like the Bermuda Triangle, that people are all sucked into some sort of weird third dimension. And then proto-science, that they've got some studies going on, but it's not, it's not there. So one of the things we'll talk about is ESP and things like that, psychics. And we'll talk about, how plausible is that, is that really, is it really true? Specifically, we'll talk about ESP, and they do, this one thing we'll look at. They treat it with the scientific method, but it's not quite there. you might want to pause and look at this just to kind of see psychology is not a brand new thing that started in ancient times. But in terms of modern psychology, we're talking the late 1800s. And one of the dudes we're going to talk about a lot in here is Freud, Sigmund Freud. We're going to talk a lot about Pavlov, Carl Jung, or Jung, depending on how you feel like talking about him, John Watson, B.F. Skinner. These are the guys that we talk about the most in here. The absolute most, and the guy that is considered to be the father of modern psychology, is Sigmund Freud. And we're going to talk about psychoanalysis and is it a pseudoscience? All right, our 4 goals of psychology. The first one is to describe. We want to gather information that's about what's being studied. So how's that person acting? Are they sad? Are they lethargic, like they're not moving around very much? They're sleeping all the time. They're increased appetite. They're just eating and eating. They feel worthless. They don't feel good about themselves. Then our next one is explain, to discover why do they behave like that? What happened? Why is this person so lethargic and sleepy and just, not feeling good about themselves? Did something happen? Or is there a chemical imbalance in their brain? Predict what will they think or feel in various situations. So what if they're feeling all these things and then they lose their job, and then their girlfriend breaks up with them, and then somebody in their family dies? What would happen next? And then control, to try to make it so that they're not having these symptoms anymore. And can we make it so that they're not depressed, so that they do feel better about themselves? Can we prevent bad things from happening, if their girlfriend breaks up with them? What are the benefits of studying psychology? There's actually an article in our course objectives, in our unit objectives for this. Improved communication skills. Yeah, you're going to be able to talk better with people, to understand how people think. You're going to be able to know how to better influence them, how to better get your point across. Maybe don't talk to me about that, because I obviously have issues with my likes and ums, as you'll grow to love or count and make bets on how many times I'll say. Better understanding of yourself. Oh my God, that's so important, because how are you, especially you guys as teenagers, how are you guys going to grow and improve and know what to do if you don't know who you are and know what you how you got to where you are and what you want to be? Enhanced understanding of others. Why is your mom randomly yelling at you? Is it random, or is there something else going on? And maybe it doesn't make it any better that they're yelling at you, but at the very least you can understand it. Stronger conflict resolution skills. So maybe when your mom is yelling at you, you can come up with some ideas on how to make it so that that kind of thing doesn't happen as often. And definitely there are a lot of jobs that involve psychology. And I'm not saying that you guys need to go out and be psych majors, but definitely taking courses in psychology are helpful. They're beneficial to you. And so obviously we're not writing this, but I mean, basically anything where you're dealing with people, you might even want to pause this and just kind of look. Like, I had to take psychology to be a teacher, to learn how to connect with students. Substance abuse, so that you understand, well, why do people become abused? Why do they relapse? Anything in sales, you're trying to communicate to people to buy your products. So real estate, or there's other stuff here, customer services, any of these kinds of things, hotel management, human resources, where you're dealing with that stuff, law enforcement, police. Oh my God, to know, who's going to be the person that might hurt you, what are they going to do, all kinds of really good stuff. All right, so now you are studying psychology. You learn that people that study psychology are psychologists. And we're going to talk about psychiatrists later, but we're talking about the people that study it. And what do these fun, friendly folk do? So obviously they're studying the mind and our behavior, but they work in a lot of different places. So people have this idea that they're just like the shrinks, all right? And let me tell you, they don't like to be called that, but, that they're just sitting there and they're, making you sit on the couch and you're having to listen to all their dribble about, ooh, tell me about your childhood. Yeah, it's not just that. They're, we've got a school psychologist. It's actually mandated by the state that we have a school psychologist. The most common place you're going to see them is in colleges, hospitals, clinics, government, particularly the military has quite a few, and then corporations and small businesses. Two of the broad areas are the research that you're going to see in college, where they're, developing new ideas and coming up with, finding out why we do the things we do, and then the actual applied, that they're using it in the real world. So this is where therapy will be, but this is also where the people that make our commercials are. So lastly, what do you think? Why do you think that the study of the brain is different than the study of the mind? Take a minute to think about that. Think about what our brain is and what our mind is. Are they the same thing? Are they different things? I don't know. All right, see you next time.